Welcome to the Fully Involved Podcast. Today's guest is Kris Menendez, also known as the hybrid firefighter. How you doing today, Kris?
I'm doing great.
My voice is a little sore, so today's the first day of the our pre-conference, and we're doing a little teaching today, so excuse my voice. So, Christian, we've been planning this for a long time, and I'm glad we finally got to get this done. So we're going to talk about your Ironman finish.
Okay.
That was in Panama Beach City. When was that?
That was pretty much a week ago. It was November 4th.
November 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to backtrack a little bit, and we're going to get to know you a little bit. So who is Kris Menendez? Were you born here in Miami?
I was born here in Miami, Florida. My parents were born in Cuba. And, before I talk about myself, I actually want to talk about you, Rick. Like, it's so crazy how when I came up with this idea, I approached you and I was just like, hey, I just have this idea for filming this little documentary. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. I just want to see how you feel about it. And immediately when I gave you the idea, you were just like, we're doing it. You didn't even question it, second guess it. So I just want to thank you for that, because for making all this possible and just getting it on film.
I appreciate that, man, and thank you for having me, because it's something that I always thought was cool. And, man, when you asked me, I was just like, of course, without doubt, man. So your family is from Cuba, and how long have they been here in this country?
My family's been here pretty much all my life. My parents got to this country when they were my mom was probably 5, my dad was probably 4, around that age. So they pretty much grew up here. My grandparents brought them here probably over 50 years ago. We've been here. I have a pretty big family down here. I really don't have any more family in Cuba that I know of. Pretty much everybody's down here.
So, Christian, where did you grow up?
So I grew up here in Miami, Florida, in South Miami area. I was born in South Miami Hospital.
Oh, my daughter was born there.
Yeah. Yeah, so was I, and it turned out good, so no complaints. I actually worked there for a little while, too, so I got to...
Oh, really?
I kind of got to give back to where I was born. But yeah, like every traditional Cuban family, I grew up in a big household. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I lived with like all my cousins, so I'm very family-oriented. I grew up with my mom, my dad, my brothers, sisters, cousins. Everybody's still a real tight-knit group. And every time I come up with a crazy idea to do something like an Ironman or a Spartan race or anywhere, they tag along, and they're my biggest supporters. So I'm just very fortunate to have them with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So did you go to elementary school? Where'd you go to elementary school?
I went to elementary school. I actually went to St. Kevin Catholic School.
Where's
That's
that?
on Bird Road.
Okay.
And like 127th. I don't know. Got to check me on that. But yeah, I grew up. I went there from kindergarten to probably about 8th grade. And that's where my passion for sports really ignited. Because at a young level, when you go to like a Catholic school or private school, they put you through, you can do sports going all the way through. So I started at like 1st grade, I started doing cross country, and then I did basketball, and then I did football, and everything that they offered, I did it. Like,
awesome.
It was crazy. I used to do track and field in St. Kevin, and I think you were only allowed to do like 5 events per kid, and I was just like...
Did them all?
I think I did them all. Like, I would always have somebody tell me, like, I would do the hurdles, and they'd be like, oh, you got to run, you got to go do the long jump, and then you got to go do the 4x4 relay, and you got to do the 100.
Never caught a break.
Never caught a break, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and it really gave me so much discipline that I needed, because I was a hyper child, and I needed a place to, just focus my attention. Yeah, and that was it. My outlet was sports, and it's been that way my entire life.
If you had to pick a favorite sport, what do you think it would be? What was your favorite thing to do?
Oh, I don't know. I think I dedicated a lot of time to basketball. Basketball was definitely my favorite for a while. Yeah, but then my knees told me we got to give basketball a break. Too much lateral movement.
A lot of wear and tear.
Yeah. And then I did cross country when I was younger, but I kind of gave up on it after a while. And then, I don't know, I just picked up running again, and I just love it. Like, there's nothing like running. Like, like, we're so caught up in technology nowadays. We're always on our phone. I mean, I wake up, and I'm guilty of it too. The first thing I do is I pick up my phone, and then, I'm scrolling.
How many likes did that post get?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or I'm in the bathroom, like, what's going on today? I'm just constantly on it. And then, when I go for a run, I don't take any music with me. I don't take my phone with me. Yeah.
I can't. I would turn around if I left my house to go back for headphones, because
well,
I got to have music.
Me, but I'll, yeah. So here's the thing. So when I was first told, like, hey, don't run with music on because it'll affect your run cadence, I found that to be true. If like I listened to a song that had like a really fast beat, like naturally I would start running faster. So initially I started doing it because of that. Then I started listening to the whole David Goggins mentality where you don't want to listen to music in tough moments because that's when when the time comes and you're searching for that music, it's not going to be there. So you might as well train without it. And then I found my own reason was just like I found that when I ran with no music and I was just running an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever session it was that day, I had so much time to just be in my own head and just kind of like really reflect on everything. And it was just like I felt I was my most creative in those moments. Like all my best ideas always came when I was running. I'd have like epiphanies. It's that runner's high that you get where I don't have anything in front of me. I don't have music. I don't have it. It's just me in my head and my thoughts and where we're going to go from here. And it's just something I fell in love with every morning when I run. That's something I really look forward to. It's just that moment with me and by myself in my head.
So I know you have a family. I know we're kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but what time would you go and run? Because I know we all have busy schedules.
Oh yeah. So I have a 2-year-old at home. She has been an absolute blessing for me and my wife. I love spending every moment I can with her. So because of that, it means that I gotta be up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go for runs because she wakes up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not gonna go run at that time because sometimes these sessions take me. Not only do people realize like when you do a 3-hour training session, it doesn't mean that you're training for those 3 hours. Like I gotta get there, I gotta unload everything, I gotta swim, then I gotta shower, then sometimes I gotta go run, and then maybe I'm not able to bike in that same location, so I gotta go bike somewhere else. So I can spend 4 hours just traveling to do what I gotta do, and I only really got an hour and a half to 2 hours of working.
Gotcha.
So because of that, I try to start as early as I can, and it's just allowed me to. Number one, I love working out by myself. Don't get me wrong, like I enjoy being around people and working out, but there's something about like when you're by yourself and you're not talking to anybody and you're just trying to accomplish a mission or a goal. I always love that. And then it also goes back to like being by myself and being in my own head and my own thoughts.
Right.
So yeah, it's real early mornings. It takes a big toll on your family. My family's been real understanding of this. My wife, she's been my biggest supporter.
That's good to have that support because
Yeah.
sometimes it could be challenging because you're
Absolutely.
tired when you get home. You got to get up and go train, and without that support, it does make it makes it easier when you have the support.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get back up to speed about the Ironman, did you go to high school, college?
Yeah, I went to high school at Sunset High School. I had an opportunity to stay in private school, and I was actually a good runner, so I was thinking either I was going to go to Belen or I was going to go to Columbus. That's where typically all of us were going to go and play sports.
I'm a Palmetto guy.
Yeah. So what happened to me was my neighbor actually was coaching Pop Warner football, and he wanted me to play. So that's when I first started playing football, and I was playing tackle football, and I fell in love with it. And
Yes.
So I lived in West Kendall, and all of my teammates were going to go to Sunset High School, and we're going to continue, and they were going to play football. So I was like, I want to go with them. Like, I want to play football with my friends. I want to continue, that path. So I kind of left private school behind, and I decided to go to the school right by my house, which was Sunset High School at the time.
College?
College,
Anything like that?
little college. I did Miami-Dade.
I think we all did Miami-Dade.
We all did Miami-Dade to try to find ourselves and see like where our passions lie, but I was never a desk guy. I can't say that, I want to be a firefighter from day one, but the more I talk to people who are firemen or who were, who gave me that confidence, like, for example, Liko Abad, he was one of the people that I spoke to about this career because he played basketball just like I did. And I would always pick his brain, and he would tell me, like, this career would be perfect for you. Like, you would love this. Like, you're one of the guys. You have that lifestyle. You love to be an athlete, and this job will allow you to do all that. So because of that conversation with him, I started looking into the fire service, and then I liked what I saw, and I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
So did you go to a fire academy down here, or did you get hired and they put you through an academy?
No, I went to Miami-Dade Fire College down here. I went full-time. At the time, I was working in my father's mechanic shop in Coral Gables, which I loved working with my father, but it just wasn't for me. Like, I grew up, playing sports. I didn't grow up under the hood of a car. I still love the fact that I worked there and I learned so much, and I had the opportunity to take over my father's business and stay there, and it just wasn't for me. I knew if I did that, I wouldn't find my purpose. I wouldn't find my happiness. So I made a decision. I told my wife one day, I said, I'm just going to pursue firefighting, and I just want to go to fire academy full time. So I sold at the time. I was playing paintball, and I sold like all my paintball guns, and I put myself through fire college for the 3
Wow.
full-time months because
It's not cheap.
yeah, it's not cheap, and it's not only that, you just don't have the time to work because you're exhausted. It's just studying, and after you finish studying, you're just so
exhausted.
worn out. Yeah,
And you got to get ready for the next day.
exactly. You got to get ready for the next day. They're long days.
You can't
so
fail a test,
you
or
can't
you're
fail
out.
the test. Yeah, so
I mean,
was
maybe a
actually-
retake or something, but you don't want to put yourself in that position.
Exactly. So it's just like, it was just, I wanted to go all in. I didn't want to do part-time. So I had the money, I set it aside. And from that moment, I just never looked back. And here I am today.
So you get to the academy. Did you do EMT medics or what?
I did EMT through American Medical Academy. And then from there, I went into fire academy because everyone was telling me like, hey, you can keep going. You can do EMT and then you can do paramedic, or you could do fire. And you can open some doors for you because, you know, as an EMT paramedic, it's a very small window for you to get hired as a fireman. But once you get fire under you and you're EMT, so many more doors open. So that's what I did. I did EMT at AMA. Then I did fire at Miami-Dade College. And then my instructors in Miami-Dade College kept telling me, like, hey, apply everywhere. Apply everywhere. Apply everywhere. Don't just wait for your dream job. Don't just wait for Miami-Dade. Don't just wait for those departments because, you know, like I know people that have been on, you know, 5 times on the list, you know,
Right.
and it took them forever
That's
to get
me.
hired. Yeah.
I applied from Key West to Orlando to Tampa,
Yeah.
and then I did that circuit in between till I finally got hired.
Yeah, I did the same thing, and it came down to Orange County Fire Rescue or City of Tampa, and I was waiting. I told my wife, I'm excited about both, but whoever gives me the conditional offer first is where I'm going. And Orange County and Orlando gave me the conditional offer first, and I went there, and they put me through medics, and I was there for pretty much 5 years, and it was just awesome. I loved the experience there.
How was that feeling when you finally got hired?
Oh man, it was like, I remember just getting the conditional offer. Like I printed it out. I took my parents with me to dinner, and then like I showed my mom, and she started crying. It was just such a big moment in my life. Like it's real. Like I'm gonna be a fireman, and when you get to fire standard, or when you get to the academy of whatever department you're in, like you don't want to mess it up because you put so much. I moved. I moved from Miami. I moved to Orlando. I'm starting a new life.
Was that a requirement, or you just moved there just because?
I just moved. It's 4-hour drive. It just wouldn't have been possible, especially my wife, because my wife left her career to follow me. So there's a lot of added pressure behind that. Like if it doesn't work out, then what? Then is she gonna be able to get her job back? Where am I gonna work? Am I gonna find something down here? It's just one of those things where when you make the commitment to move for work like that and to follow your dreams and your passion, you got to give it 100%.
Right.
So I found a very good home up there. I found some receptive people that really took the time to train me, and which is where I got passionate about RIT, because in my department up there, every single fire engine had a RIT pack. So every house had them. We trained with them all the time.
That is awesome. I wish we had that here.
Yeah, it was great. And over there we had engineer. Our driver position was a rank. It was an engineer
Promoted position.
Yeah. So my engineer was really passionate about RIT, and he actually went to training. He stepped out for a little while to do training for RIT, and he came back, and he just brought so many new ideas, and it was just something we worked on all the time. It was like the idea of like, who better to save you than you?
Of
and
course.
Like, he just ingrained that in me, and like
Nobody else is coming.
Nobody else is coming. Like, it's just you. So that to me is probably my favorite discipline in the fire service. Probably fire, followed by maybe like extrication I love as well, but RIT is always something I've been so passionate about, and he instilled that to me, and I learned that up there, and I've evolved it down here.
I think you are very inspirational in getting us started with our RIT team, and it started out with just us.
Yeah, that's another funny story. So I remember wanted to train with the RIT packs that we had here. We have the same RIT packs in Orange County.
Okay,
that we
RIT
do
Pack
here.
3. Scott.
Right, Scott RIT Pack 3. But over there, we all had shared regulators, so we didn't have the quick disconnect. So I came down one day on my off time, I think like right after I got off probation. I'm like, let me just run through the RIT pack, how it correlates to connecting to the quick disconnect and how that works. So I went down there, I got a pack, and I was just practicing by myself. And I think Juan and a couple other people were walking by, and you saw me. You guys are like, "What are you doing?" So I was like, "Oh, I'm just practicing here with the rib pack." And you stuck. You didn't even know me. You just stuck around. Here I am, a probationary firefighter, and you picked my brain, and we had conversations about like what I used to do, what I like, what I don't like, and from that moment, like, we took off running with it. You told me, "Hey, I want to start a RIT team down here. Are you interested in joining?" And I was so happy for you to even give me that opportunity. Was just, to me, it was like crazy, because I'm like, I am this new guy in this fire department, and I have a senior captain here who's dedicated so much time to RIT, and he's actually like, he cares what I have to say about it, and he's actually listening to my advice, my opinion, and how I feel about it. And it was just so crazy to me. I'm like, I would have never imagined that. So I remember you told me, you're like, we're gonna get a team together, and since then, I've just been here. I've been down. I don't think I've ever left training. I'm here almost every day. I'm on my off time just training. Either it's RIT or running or whatever it may be.
I like RIT. I had myself a close call, which I would consider a close call earlier in my career. Maybe it wouldn't be now, but unless people actually go through one of those close calls, I find that people don't really take it seriously.
Yeah.
And for me, that was just when it clicked to me when I became passionate about RIT. And outside of battalion Chief Tony Garcia, who's retired now, and he was the RIT guy. He was the one who designed the RIT bag. He's the one who wrote the policy, and that was what we were passionate about in Battalion 12C.
Yeah.
And it's just stuck with me. And thank you for reigniting that passion and bringing it from Orange County, and we found some like-minded people, and
yeah.
We're still training to this day.
That's right. That's the next endeavor. And now we got the RIT competition in January, so it just doesn't stop. And
it never stops.
I'm so excited about it.
There's always something else.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about why we're here today.
Okay.
So what made you want to do an Ironman?
I tried, I think my wife asked me that question the other day, like, what made you want to do this? And I don't know exactly how I got into Ironman. At the time, I was doing obstacle course racing. I was doing Spartan races and Tough Mudders and stuff like that.
I might have shot you, because I've shot a lot of those events.
I've done a bunch of them, and I've done the 12 mile, the 14 miles, and like anybody else, when you start doing some form of an endurance sport, you start asking yourself like, okay, I've done this. What's next?
Check next.
So I think I started researching like long distance running or different types of running, and I came across Ironman, and I remember seeing this documentary called The Iron Cowboy, and it's about a triathlete who does 50 Ironmen in 50 days in 50 different states. And it's controversial because some people say, like, he used IV rehydration therapy, or on some days.
So what?
Yeah, so what? So also people were saying that there was like a day or two where it was storming outside in the documentary and they just couldn't go out and run, so he did like an elliptical because that's all they had, and he mimicked that for the run.
You got to work with what you got.
And they're like, oh, well, now it's void because it doesn't count. And I'm like, man, he did 50 Ironman length distances in 50 days in 50 states. So it's like you're traveling is your recovery time. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're sleeping in a trailer. So when I saw that, it was like, wow, if this guy can do 50, I can do one. So, and that's where it started. I just like, obviously the only background that I had was running, so that's where I started. I was already doing our Spartan races, so I had somewhat of a running background. I kind of knew how that worked. I didn't have a bike, but I had a Peloton at home, because at the time COVID came around, and my wife was pregnant, and she didn't want me going out to the gyms or training. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm just here at home, bored on my own. And then the gym at my apartment at the time in Orlando shut down. They didn't let anybody in there.
Yeah, mine too.
So there's only so much you could do. Like, I'm not just going to do push-ups all day long. So I got the Peloton. And I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of like biking. So I got the biking down packed. I got the running down packed. And the swim will be easy. I'm like, I'm Cuban. I've spent like, half my life in the water. Our families always have boats. But, man, that was like the biggest wake-up call when I first got in the water. I got in the pool, and I was like, all right, let's swim. And I think I swam from one side of the pool to the end, and it was 50 meters. And I was like, I was dead, tired. Because I'm used to, like, going underwater, keeping myself afloat. All those things are easy. But when you're actually, front crawling, you're freestyle swimming the proper way, if you don't do it correctly, it's exhausting. Like you can't catch your breath. You're dragging too much. You're putting too much force on your arms. So that was the biggest wake up call to me. I was like, man, I really got to get half decent at swimming. So
Did you find a difference swimming in the pool as opposed to the ocean?
I did. We'll get into that when we talk about the Ironman story, but it is a completely different monster.
Different animal.
Yeah, because in the pool, I'm following a blue line all day long. So I'm just, swimming from one end of the pool back. There's no current. Following the blue line gives you this false sense of, that you're constantly swimming straight when you're not. You're correcting, but you're not noticing yourself correcting because you're following a line. So I remember the first time I ever did, I didn't do, an Ironman wasn't my first distance. I did Olympic distance swim. I did the Miami Man. And that's when I learned that I was like drifting way too far to the right. I was swimming and all of a sudden I felt good. I look up and I'm like way off to the right. And I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. So it's constant correction.
Which has to be tiring.
It has to be tiring. And then you're not also looking, when I was in the pool originally swimming, I'm not like looking up to see where I'm going because I know where I'm going. I'm in the water. So I had to also make that adjustment too. I had to fix how I sight out of the water. I wasn't used to getting kicked in the face. It's just little things like that once you start doing it, it's like, yeah, this is a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be.
All right, so you put some training. How much training did you put into this last event?
I only put 3 months of training.
3 months?
Yeah, it was a bad idea. So a year ago, I did a half Ironman. I did in Haines City, Florida. I did my first 70.3 Ironman. After that, I didn't get on the bike or swim up until training for this Ironman. But I got cocky, and I'm like, well, just
double the distance.
Yeah,
I got it.
I'm a hybrid athlete. I do multiple different sports. I train. I keep myself in shape. Like, how hard could it be to? If I give myself 3 months, I'll be there, which was probably one of the biggest mistakes I made because I had to sacrifice a good amount of weight training just to find time for the swim, bike, run because I only had so much time to do it. It's actually something that you want to do as you're training for a triathlon. You want to be able to strength train. Because you're going to avoid injury, you're going to get stronger, and I wasn't able to do as much as I would like, and yeah, it was really tough to do it in just 3 months. So there was many times, where I put so much pressure on myself because I'm like, I'd have really bad days. I'd have days where I'd go out for a run, and 5 miles in, I'm done, I'm tired. I'm like, okay, so how am I supposed to do a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run, and I'm tired in 5 miles.
Did you have a program? Or you have a coach, or you just kind of like did
my
your own thing?
coach was YouTube University.
Yes, like
So
like everybody else.
I should have probably looked into a swimming coach, but I just was like hard-headed. I tried to figure it out on my own. I did have a few people in the department that had experience with triathlons. One of them being Chief John de Blasi, which was a huge help to me.
Within Georgia Smoke Divers as we speak.
As we speak, and I'm following every single step of his progress. Every time they post something, I'm always looking for him. He's awesome.
And Feld Zone too.
And Feld Zone, yeah. He's awesome, man. And I remember the first day I met him, I had just gotten off probation, and one of my friends, Luis Castro, that we graduated together, we started running together. And at the time, I had never done, I think the longest distance I had done was like a half marathon by myself. So I was like, hey, man, you want to go do 15-mile run? And he's like, yeah. So he texts me the next day. He says, hey, man, can one of my chiefs come with us? And, like, I'm thinking, like, my perception of a chief is, like, I don't know if a chief is going to be able to keep up us on the run. I'm like, what's his pace? Is he going to be able to kind of keep up? Is this, like, I kind of didn't want to add somebody else and slow me down. So he's like, no, he's in shape, and he runs all the time. So I'm like, okay. So next morning we wake up, we're at we're doing a Key Biscayne 15-mile run, and in comes John de Blasi, and he looks like a runner. He looks like he's in shape. And we start running. We're running at a slow pace because it's mine and Lewis's first time attempting this distance. And at the time, the most important thing to me was not how fast I was going for my training, was just time on feet. Like, how much time can I spend on feet? Because doing an Ironman, for me, it took me 13 hours. 13 hours doing something, regardless of what you're doing, it's taxing on your body. So you have to be able to, put that distance on your feet. So I'm running. And I don't know how we get into the conversation, but he tells me he did an Ironman in the past. And he's telling me all these things, and I'm just like, I'm like a kid in the candy store. As we're running, like I'm just picking his brain. I'm asking him 1,000 questions. I was probably driving him crazy, but he was a good sport and he was receptive, and he just gave me so much advice. And he was telling me like, how I should, run following my heart rate and what I should eat. And he was just giving me a bunch of knowledge. And I'll never forget, like, I think we dropped Lewis, like at mile 10, Lewis slowed down, but he's like, hey, keep going. Like, I'll catch up to you guys. And then I'm running with John, and I'm like, oh, okay, like me and John can pick up the pace now. And I still felt like I was going at a good pace and I was going slow. And then all of a sudden John looks at me. He's like, hey, man, I'm going to take off for like a mile or two just to get my heart rate up, and then I'll turn around and I'll come back and meet you. And I was like, I felt so defeated. Here I am thinking like, oh, I'm keeping up with this guy. We're having a great run. And he was still like in zone 1. And here I am probably like in zone 3 or zone 4. My heart rate's up. And that's just when I really realized that there's just levels to this. There's levels to this. And you can't fake it. One thing that endurance sports has taught me is like, you can't go 100 miles an hour. Like, it takes so much discipline. It takes, a lot of good days and a lot of bad days. There are times where I run and I have bad runs or my heart rate's elevated and I have to slow down. I have to be patient. Like, I can't just push myself and say like, hey, we'll live to fight another day. Like, let's rest today so we could put in more mileage tomorrow on the following day. Versus if I push myself and I'm doing 20 miles and by mile 15 I'm exhausted and I push myself to get those extra 5 miles, can I do it? Yes. But at what cost?
Right.
Now I'm recovering for 3 or 4 days because of that run, when maybe I would have just cut back a little bit, cut 3 or 4 miles short, and the next day I'm still able to run. The following day I'm still able to run. So now in the long run, that's the better tactic. So
Right.
just having to teach myself that, like, slow down, take a step back, and what's the best move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So you finish up the run and you're like, damn, this chief is pretty
Yeah,
good.
I finished up the run and I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. So since then, he's become a good friend of mine. And every time I have a question, I text him. I'm like, hey, John, like, what bike seat should I get? Or how should I hold my nutrition? Or what should I eat? Like, at all hours of the day. And he'll just text me and be like, hey, try this or try that. He'll send me videos. Or, especially with... So when I first wanted to do an Ironman, I was going to go, like, all the way. I was going to do the full Ironman. Like, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to do a half. Like, I had so much pride and I was so cocky, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. When I told John about it, he's like, you're crazy. He's like, look into Miami, man. It's Olympic distance. You don't have, it's a European distance. So it's like, I think.
What is that?
It was like 800 meters swimming, probably like 24 miles on the bike. And I want to say like 6.5, 7 mile run. So it was like not
what normal people can do.
Yeah. So exactly, like you would think like, oh, so I'm like, oh, that's easy. He's like, practice your transition. Cause I didn't know anything. He's like, practice your transitions, your nutrients, like get everything, all the questions out of the way in this run and then work your way up to a full Ironman. And when I did that run, I made so many mistakes. I was so happy I did that. Cause had I, jumped into a full Ironman, I would have never survived. Like my nutrition was way off. I was cramping. I really didn't know the importance of sodium and electrolytes. I just learned so much. And the swimming, I was exhausted when I got out of the water. And it wasn't even close to the Ironman swim distance. And there was no current. It was in a lake. And multiple times I had to stop swimming and just lay on my back and kind of recover and keep going. And when I got out of the water, I was exhausted. I was like, thank God I decided to do this distance, because had I gone any further than this, I probably wouldn't have made it. And yeah, he's just been such a great help to me. He's been like a mentor throughout this whole journey, and just everything he does. Like, smoke divers, that's something I want to do as well. Like, we seem to be on the same page. On what we want to do. Like, I don't want to just stop at Ironmans. I love Ironmans, but I want to do other things. I want to do like ultra running, which he's actually dabbled into. So that's another thing that probably after this, the first conversation we're going to have after we talk about smoke divers is like, hey, so when's the next ultra?
What's next?
Yeah. So
which one are we doing?
Exactly. And then another person who's helped me out a lot was Jesus Lizarraga.
Liz.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. Like, he's real humble. He's always smiling, always laughing, giving me advice, like texting me every day leading up to Ironman, like, hey, watch this video, watch that, or this is going to happen, or this is on this day. And just, he's been following me the entire time, and I followed him as well. I mean, before he did Ironman Panama, he did Ironman Texas. So I
Okay.
was following him. Then I picked his brain, like, how was it? How was your nutrition? And he taught me, like, the importance of, like, he told me, he's like, hey, when I race, I don't drink any water. And I was like, you don't drink any water? He's like, yeah. Water's great for afterwards or before, but while I'm racing, it's all electrolyte drinks. Sodium, electrolytes, potassium. You're losing so much water as you're sweating that, like, when you put your water back into your body and you don't have any other
dilutes
nutrients,
it?
yeah, it's just diluted. It's not carrying anything. Water on its own, when it's carrying the food that you're intaking and stuff like that, it's great for you. But when you're running, you're doing some kind of event like an Ironman or any kind of endurance event, you want sugar, you want potassium, you want sodium, because those are the things your body craves.
We gotta see if Huberman has a video on something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
We gotta find him. We gotta pick his brain because I watch him for a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So it's just little things like that you don't pay attention to and you don't pay in mind until you start realizing, like, hey, why don't I not feel good on this run? Or why am I dying out? So once I got, like, my nutrition down pat, all my training changed. Like, I was able to last longer. My heart rate was lower. I just felt like if you're
Got dialed in.
Yeah, because if you're feeding yourself, what endurance sports, in my opinion, is it's just a battle of hemostasis in your body. Your body wants to start shutting down. How am I going to keep my body from shutting down? Okay, I'm going to put the right nutrients in. I'm going to keep the calories that I need per hour in. I'm going to drink X amount of sports drink. That's half the battle. Yes, the running and the biking and the swimming, that's all very important. But without the right nutrients, like, you stand no chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do your training. It's you're a week out. Tell me, what's the feeling like before that? You start to get excited? You start to get stressed out?
I started getting stressed out. Not because I didn't feel ready, but me and you had this conversation. So I made the big mistake of putting my daughter in daycare a month before Ironman. It's just the timing was off, but we just needed to put her in daycare. So October 1st, we put her in daycare, and she gets getting sick and sick. So she's sick, and then she recovers. Then we take her to the doctor, and now she's got an ear infection. She recovers. And probably a week before Ironman, she's still, coughing, congested, but, like, maybe 3 days before we're heading to Panama, she comes back from school and she's, like, really warm. And I was like, oh, damn, man, it's not good. Like, she was just
sick.
Yeah, she was just I felt so bad because, I mean, my daughter will cough right in my face or stick her fingers in my mouth. It's inevitable. If they're sick, you're going to get sick. And I was like, damn, like, I think she's getting a fever again. So my wife's like, let's take her down to the hospital. Let's get her checked out. And you know how we are as firemen. Like, she's okay. Just let her fight the fever. It's okay. My wife's like, no, I really want to get her checked out. Plus, I want to see if the ear infection's still there or if the ear infection's finally gone. So I'm like, okay, let's go. So we went down to the doctor, and they said, yeah, the ear infection's still there. We're going to give her something for the ear infection. And they're like, if you want to swab her for RSV or COVID or whatever, you can. So we just did it. And the doctor comes back in the room, is like, oh, she has RSV. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, this is, like, worst case scenario.
Timing.
Like, I have this whole trip planned. Her parents are coming up, staying with us so they can help out with the baby. My wife and my daughter are staying up with us. And all of a sudden, like, now it's literally day by day for the next 2 days. Like, how is my daughter going to react? And, of course, she's got sneezing, coughing, congestion. She's not sleeping through the night. She's battling fever. Every 4 hours we're giving her medicine because she constantly has fever. So we made the decision of, like, my wife and my daughter stayed home, which for me that was, like, devastating because anytime, like, it got tough in practice, or not practice but training, you always have to have a vision of you succeeding to kind of get you through the tough times. And my vision was always, like, me finally crossing the finish line and, like, going immediately to my wife and my daughter and, like, picking my daughter up and throwing her in the air and just seeing her reaction and, like, kissing my wife. And that was just, like, that was always my vision. Like, that's how I wanted to finish, and that's how I wanted to cross the finish line. And now, like, that's not happening at all. Yeah, she's not coming. And I was like, man, this is just such a big blow. And, like we spoke earlier, like, this is such a commitment to do something like this, like any kind of endurance sport. Like, you spend so much time away from your family that they go through it just as much as you go through it. So, like, when you're actually successful or when you finish, like, you want to share that experience with them because you all went through it together.
Correct.
So now I couldn't share that experience with them, like, face to face, which I had vision. So that was that. Like, that was tough. So now I drove up by myself. And then, you came along, you were going to film. And then I was fortunate enough, Eric Vidal, he wanted to come up, and his girlfriend Mel to film. And I was so fortunate that like they were on board as well. Like nobody asked me for money, nobody asked me for anything. Everybody was just like, they saw my vision and they're like, yeah, we're on board. So I was just so humbled by that. And so I'd rented you guys a room, and I had a room that now was by myself. You know, I had nobody in it. And so we get up to Panama, and I remember like, you know, we were all together, and we went to the place that I rented for you guys, and you're like, just cancel the reservation. Like, we'll stay with you. I'm like, oh, are you guys sure? You're like, yeah, we'll stay with you. So then like ended up going to the hotel that we ultimately stayed at. And you
Which
guys were
was
like,
awesome.
It was awesome.
Your wife
awesome.
doesn't know what she missed.
Yeah, it had like the best views. It was
The
beautiful
view.
balcony. It was like on the water, and you guys are like, yeah, we're staying here. So
We're not going back to that
we're
house.
not going back to the house. The house is nice,
You were stuck with us.
but it's not on the water, and we're staying here. So yeah, so you know, we checked out Ironman Village together, and when I went to Ironman Village, so Ironman Village is basically like, it's the hub when you pull in. It's where you check in. You know, you check in your bike, you check on.
That's
everything.
really like, man, this is real.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, that's where it gets real. The minute you pass like the front entrance and it says Ironman Florida, you're like, I'm here. Like, there's no turning back. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, like, you know, putting stuff on social media and telling people like what I wanted to accomplish, and then having you guys up there. There's a lot of pressure because, you know, like, I want to finish, I want to do well, because I mean, you guys invested time into this, and I don't want, you know, to fail. So I did. I was nervous, and but at the same time, I'm like, listen, I put the work in. Could I have put more work in? Yeah, but I feel good. I you know, to this point, like, my swimming felt good, my biking felt good, and my running felt good. I was like, you know, I think I'm ready to do this.
So check-in process and all that goes well. So it was the night before. So tell me what's going on in your mind the night before.
The night before.
So wait, let me back up a little bit. So you do the check-in, and then there's a certain thing that you have to bring your bike in, and you
Yeah.
check your bike in. How does that work for people who
So-
don't know?
So when you go to the village, like, you have to check in 2 days before. So you go, you check in. They give you your swim cap. They give you all your stickers that you have to put on, like your bike helmet and your bike, which are pretty much identifiers. And then they give you individual bags. So the way it works is, you do a swim, you do a bike, and you do a run. In between the swim and in between the bike, there's a transition period. There's an area where you have all your gear that you're going to need for your bike in a bag. So let's say I finish my swim, I run, I grab my transition bag, I go into a tent, I change, I have like additional hydration in there. I have anything I think I may need
For the ride.
So for the bike. Then, so when you finish the bike, it's the same thing. You finish the bike, you have somebody that's going to go ahead and grab your bike, take it from you, and then you're going to go run to the next transition area, and you grab another bag. It's going to have all your run stuff. It's going to have your sneakers, your hydration, your cap, glasses, whatever you're going to wear on the run, your race bib, all that. So those bags where all your stuff are in, you get in check-in. So
How key is transition? Because I know some people kind of take their time. I know, you know, sometimes that could be a big deal, because it can potentially make a difference in placement.
yes. So it depends what you're doing this for. If you're doing this just to do it and you're not so worried about your time, transition's important. It's not so important as far as, like, I mean, at the professional level, they practice their transitions. Like, you know, they have rubber bands tied to their shoes on their bike,
that.
and it's just, they don't skip a beat. Like, time, when you go to the professional level, like, they're minutes behind each other. So they have to make sure that every minute counts. When you're doing it more at my level, where it's just, you know, the average Joe, you know, wanting to accomplish something like this, it's not that it's not difficult, but you have a couple of choices. Like, either you can take your time in transition and just recover and relax and prep yourself for the next step, or you can just, you know, move with a purpose, kind of how we do it in the fire grounds. Like, I'm not in a rush, but I'm not here to just, you know, slow down. I have momentum going. I have adrenaline going. I want to keep everything moving. So that's how I treated it, you know. So when I finished getting out of the swim, I grabbed my bike and I quickly changed. You know, I had additional hydration in there. I had a Gatorade Endurance with me. I had gels that I was eating that I ate before I got on the run. I had you know, I changed some. Even the professionals, they won't even wear socks because it just slows them down. They'll just like run and put their bike shoes on. So I stop. I have a towel in there. I dry my feet. I put on socks.
I hate wet socks.
No, and imagine, yeah. But imagine, I mean, they're used to it now. But imagine doing 112 miles on a bike and you have no socks on. You know, like it's
The
and
chafing or
friction and
something, yeah.
chafing. I mean, they've mastered it. They got it down to a science.
So there's always that big question: when do you guys find time to go to the bathroom?
Ugh, part of leading up to the race is which I didn't do in my first race, and that's how I knew I was dehydrated. Was you practice with your nutrition. So if I plan to drink, for example, I did a sweat test before. When I was training, I did a sweat test to see how many liters am I losing an hour, and how many do I need to replenish. So basically, you need to replenish about 75% of what you lose. And for me, I sweat a lot. Like I think I lost 2.25 liters of fluid an hour. So I had to drink. When I was training, I was drinking 3 Gatorades, every hour, just to get by. And obviously Gatorade has a lot of sugar if you're not drinking the sugar-free one. So your body starts adapting to that. But if you're one of these people who doesn't focus on your nutrition and all of a sudden on race day or race morning or anything like that, you're just eating something new, it's going to affect you, because you're not going to know. So my body knows, like, okay, I'm going to use the bathroom in the morning one more time before the race, and then I probably won't have to use the bathroom again till such and such time. And they do at the professional level, like, if they got to go, they'll go. Like, if they got to pee on their bike, they'll pee on the bike. If they got to pee in the swim, they'll pee in the swim. All through the way, because, like I said, at that level, it's just different. Seconds count. Like, I can't afford... All the aid stations, for the most part, have porta potties, but at the professional level, you cannot afford to stop, go on a porta potty, and keep going. It's just a matter of, like...
Just got to hold it.
Yeah, you got to hold it, or...
Do you think they change their diet to more of a liquid diet as opposed to solid foods because you don't want everything in their gut to take away from...
It's crazy, like... Everybody's so different. Like, I've done so much research on what's the best nutrients, what's the best... And I can't find one answer, Everybody's so different. Especially me, I'm not your typical triathlete body. Like, I'm
pretty big for a triathlete.
I'm a big guy. So, like, I mean, I think I researched at one point, like, what my body mass index needed to be a triathlete. And I think at 6'2", it's like 21 is the BMI, which that basically means that I would have to be like 150 pounds for me to be at like an elite level. And I weigh 215 pounds. So I'm never going to get there. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to be a professional triathlete, which God bless them. Yeah. So good for them. Like, that's awesome that they can do that. And it's a great lifestyle. And that's what they've dedicated their lives to doing. That's not my goal. My goal really was just like, I just love to find different, athletic events that like push me to my limits and test me. And I'm just trying to find stuff like that to keep me going. That was the purpose of the Ironman. Like, how far can I go? Like, at one point, had you told me, could you do an Ironman? And I thought about the distances, like, I would have never thought that I could do something like that. But then, like, you break it down to the base level. Like, okay, all right, so 500 meters. Let's get to 500 meters in the pool. Okay, I could do 500 meters. Let's get to 800. Let's get to... It's just a slow process of breaking down, like, mile after mile, mile after mile. And until eventually you get there. Like...
It's a process.
Yeah, the process is definitely, like most things, the process is harder than the actual race. Not to say that the race wasn't difficult, but the lead up to the race, all the runs, all the biking, all the swimming, especially, like, being in the fire service, like, we have, like, for example, like, I worked last night, and I probably slept 4 hours. Now, I'm not training for a triathlon now because I finished, but if I was on a schedule, and I was scheduled to do, 2,000-meter swim the next morning, followed by a 5-mile bike or 15-mile bike, whatever the case may be, I have to do it. Right. Now I'm only doing it on 4 hours of sleep. So,
and we all know sleep is very important. Recovery is very important, which I didn't know as when I was younger how important that was.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about the nutrition. So yeah, the nutrition is just something you have to practice. Like, at least you should practice your nutrition minimum like 2 months before you do an event like this. Like, every time you train, I was, drinking 3 Gatorades an hour. I was taking salt, base salt, which is what I use. 3 tabs under my tongue every If it was on the bike, it was every 5 miles. If it was on the run, it was every mile.
Oh, you broke it down, huh?
Yeah, and then yeah, you have to. And then every 45 minutes, I was taking a gel. So like I had my nutrition down packed. I knew what I was gonna eat the morning of. I knew what I was gonna eat during transition. I pretty much had it all down to
Had a plan.
Yeah, which plans never really work out, which we'll get into.
So what time did you wake up that morning?
I think I woke up that morning at 4. So
Anybody's alarm clock wake you up early?
yeah, the night before, somebody's alarm clock was going off randomly at like 2 in the
Guilty as
morning.
charged.
Yeah.
So
So
you
I-
wake up and tell me what's your routine?
So I wake up at 4 in the morning, and the first thing I want to do is I want to get like food in my body. And I typically, when I wake up, I'm not hungry. So this is definitely like I've had to teach myself to like immediately eat, because I need those carbohydrates and I need all that nutrition in my system to do these endurance runs or bikes or swims. So first thing I do for me, I get a bagel, and I have peanut butter, and I have honey, and I have banana, and then I'll have sports drink.
Crunchy?
Crunchy's the best.
Boom.
Yeah, that's
All
definitely
right,
where
you're
they
cool.
go. Yeah. So that's my breakfast. And I have some coffee. Some people don't like coffee. It's just something I'm used to. And it helps the bowels go,
15, 20 minutes later.
Exactly. So I know how to go to
Works
the
like
bathroom.
a charm.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a diuretic. So I go ahead and I do that. And, then we were ready to take off. The night before, obviously, like everything's set up. Like in the morning, I'm not looking for anything. I mean, I think in that table that we had in the living room, I had everything set up there. All my bags, everything packed, everything done, ready to go. So, we took off, and then we went to
Massage Envy?
Massage Envy. Yeah, that was our landmark. Yeah, like, hey, it's right next to the Massage Envy, because the parking was by the mall. So we parked by Massage Envy. We went to transition area. So I went to go check my bike in the morning. I brought a bike pump with me.
So what happens overnight that you have to bring a pump? I saw that, and I figured it gets low.
Yeah, it gets low. Like for me, I'm a little heavier. Like I found everybody's different. For me, I think like 110 psi, and each one of my tires is perfect for me. And people say that if you keep your tires inflated, with the hot and with the cold, depending on the temperature, they can increase and decrease, and definitely the pressure either goes up or down. So you want to check the pressure. Like for me, I keep my tires inflated normally, and I think like the morning of, both of my tires were 80 psi. So definitely I wanted to take my bike pump to make sure that I was back at 110 for the bike. So I do that, make sure my bags are where they're supposed to be. So I just do a quick walk around. And yeah, I think the professionals started at 6:50 in the morning. They
Somewhere
got in
around
the
there.
water. Then after that, it was the female professionals. Then it was the age group started. So the way it works is like back in the days when you used to do triathlons or Ironman, everybody would get in the water at the same time, which is nuts to even think about. It's like a bunch of sardines just hitting each other the whole
Kicking,
time.
punching.
I'm so
Not on
glad.
purpose, but it's just...
Yeah. So they changed all that, and now it's I want to say it's like 5 people every like 5 seconds or something like that. So they're constantly letting people in the water. And then what they'll do is, so you know where to line up, and when it's your time to go, they'll have somebody like holding a sign in the air
Sort of like a marathon, so you
Right.
kind of know you.
with your projected swim time. So if you think it's going to take you an hour and a half to finish the 2.4 mile swim, line up behind this guy. And could you line up earlier and try to start the race faster? Yes, but you're going to be miserable because you're going to have people passing you the whole time, bumping into you.
Get in people's way.
Right. So like
Do the right thing.
Exactly. Do the right thing, get in people's way. So if I go with people who are my similar pace, I don't really have to worry about that. Plus, we can draft off of each other. So yeah, I got in the water.
So let's talk about the water, man.
Yeah, let's talk about the water.
Was it cold?
It was freezing. But you have so much adrenaline going through your body, plus I have a wetsuit on that I didn't feel that. But the day, I think like 2 days before the race when we were up there, was like the coldest day. I think it was like 40.
Yeah.
And it was cold.
For me.
I was
For us.
worried.
We're Florida boys.
Yeah.
Caribbean.
I wasn't even too worried about the temperature of the water as much as I was like, okay, once I take this wetsuit on, I'm biking and I'm going 18, 19 miles an hour and I'm feeling that wind, wet, 40-degree weather, that's going to be a problem. But thank God that wasn't. So
Do you do a warm-up routine before you start, or you just kind of just like the swim is kind of like your warm-up? Do you
the
do
swim is
anything
kind of
special?
my warm-up. I feel like you're so anxious once that, once it's your turn to go in and like you're gonna start, that like the last thing I'm thinking about is like, oh, I'm cold. Like I'm just like now I'm focused. Like what's the game plan? Okay, this is I gotta go at this speed, or I gotta calm down, or I can run out this far before I have to actually dive in. Like I'm worried about so many other things.
I saw that some people who didn't really like walk the beach, they jumped in the water and like they hit sand and they
They
kind
hit
of felt
sand.
like
Yeah. The beautiful thing about Panama City is the water's so nice, and you almost pretty much have like a sandbar for the first like 50 yards. That you don't really need to swim for 50 yards. So I chose not to. I chose like, hey, let me walk this, or do like a like a little jog, and then once it gets like a little higher than waist level, then I'll dive in. So that's what I did, and so the swim was rough. It was like I was not expecting it. So my projected time was, I thought I was going to have the swim done in like an hour and 15 minutes. I felt really confident in the water. I was never really fast in the water, but I felt like I could swim forever. Once I got like a good swim technique down, I felt like you could put me in the water no matter how tired I am, and I can get, whatever distance I need to get done. So I felt really comfortable in the water. So I get in the water and I'm swimming, and I'm going, and I look up, and then when I look up to see where I'm at, because you have buoys lined up in front of you to tell you where to go. You want to keep the buoys coming in on your right hand side, and then when you start turning, obviously on the opposite side. So I'm looking up and I'm like way off. I'm like, the buoy's not in front of me, it's like all the way to the left. I'm like almost out of bounds. I'm like, oh God. So like immediately, like that's where the current kicked in. Where like I'm not used to this current, and it's not coming directly at you. It's coming angled, so you have to constantly adjust if you're not used to it. And I didn't do any open water swims, which I should have leading up to this race. But I was just like, I'll just do pool swims and I'll be fine, which was a mistake. So for me, when I swim, I kind of do like a glide technique. Like I put my hand out, I reach as far as I can, I let myself glide in the water, then I catch and pull. So it's not very fast. It's more of like a gliding technique. The problem with that is when you have waves and current coming at you, when you're trying to glide forward and progress, you're not really progressing forward. The current's pulling you back. So now I'm like, man, I'm going.
Right.
I felt like I was going so
gotta
slow.
adjust.
So I got to adjust. So, and I also don't kick a lot. I save my kicking. I save my feet. I'm not trying to exhaust my legs in the water, but I had to compensate for the fact that the current was pushing me. So I started kicking a lot faster. I started moving my arms a lot more. And maybe like halfway through the first lap of the swim, my left calf just like cramped really bad. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the worst timing. I'm like deep in the water. I'm nowhere near land. My calf just cramped. I was like, this is worst case scenario. So I ended up pretty much for...
Where those guys on paddle boards?
Yeah, I was like, oh man. So like for half of the swim, I didn't use my legs, which I was like, this is terrible, but I don't have a choice because there's no worse feeling than like when you cramp or pull a muscle or something like that. It's just like I felt the knot in my calf, and anytime I tried to move it, it would just aggravate it. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep my calf still. And I didn't want to kick with the other leg alone because it was just probably going to end up the same way, and probably it would most likely shift where I was going to end up on the swim. I was probably going to get pulled to one side because I'm only kicking on one side. So I said, I'm just going to abandon the feet and swim with my arms.
All right, so I'm going to ask this question. Ocean, sharks. Are you thinking about wildlife?
Yes. I am terrified of sharks. I'm that guy that if I'm in the pool by myself, like I have that irrational feeling that like there's a shark in the water. Like I love
Like, to me,
sharks.
that'd be like my biggest
Yeah,
fear.
yeah. I'm
It's like, I'll be that
fascinated.
unlucky guy.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by sharks. Like I love Shark Week. I love watching sharks, but I am deathly afraid of like being in the water with a great white shark. It's like one of my biggest fears. So, yeah, the water's clear in Panama, so I can kind of see under me. So it's something that I'm not trying to pay attention to, but like it's always in the back of my mind. Like I'm looking down, I'm like, is there anything underneath me? Because when you're swimming, you don't really want to be looking forward per se. You're kind of looking down, because by looking down, it keeps your shoulders in a position and your body in a position that will allow your legs to stay up. Because naturally, my feet sink. So like that was one of the biggest mistakes I did. I was like way too high up when I was swimming, and I realized like, okay, I have to like adjust my body so I can keep my feet up. So I'm swimming. And man, there's just like one guy that just happens to be like next to me the entire time. I don't know if we have the same pace, the same problems, or whatever. This guy just kept bumping into me, and he must have kicked me in the face like 10, 15 times. It was to the point where,
Are you doing this on purpose?
yeah, he kicked me one time. I pulled my head out of the water. I'm like, oh my God. And like he stopped, lifted his head up and apologized to me, which is unheard of because like, you're going to get kicked when you're swimming in these races. It's just inevitable. Like you don't stop to apologize. You just keep going. But the guy probably realized like, I've kicked this guy so many times that I have to say sorry to him. So it was constantly like readjusting my goggles because they were getting kicked off, my eye, and now I have salt water swishing in my eye. And there's that, which was terrible as well. So I'm swimming. I'm not progressing as much as I would like to be, but I have a pace going and I feel okay. And I'm starting to kind of go straight again. Like I'm not going side to side as much. I've kind of figured out like, hey, like every 3 strokes, I got to look up because if I go 10 strokes without looking up, it could be, I could be way too far right or way too far left. So I see a jellyfish underneath me and I'm like, oh, okay, jellyfish. Didn't think anything of it. I swam maybe another minute and I see like 2 jellyfish close by underneath me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, just got to keep swimming and avoid them. Don't hit them. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm like in a school of jellyfish. And I'm like, oh, man, this is not good. I can't use my legs. I'm not swimming very fast. And now I just got this school of jellyfish. And I could feel them, like, on. Thank God I have a wetsuit.
What did it feel like?
It just felt like, squishy, spongy. Like, they were passing through my hands. And one of them bit me in the face. And I'm just like, you can't train for this stuff. Like, you expect that you hear stories, you think about it. But, like, I'm not training with jellyfish. I'm not training getting kicked in the face. I'm not training where, my calf pulls on me. I'm not training with current. So, like, the swim was just so unexpected. Like, I think I ended up swimming at, like, I think I finished, like, at 140 or something like that when I wanted to finish at 115. So I was already behind on my time. So I finally get out of the water. I can't breathe out of my nose to save my life. Like, I'm sniffling the whole time. I'm sneezing every, like, 15 seconds. And I'm like, I don't know if this is, like, a reaction with the jellyfish or, like, am I finally catching the cold that my daughter has? Like, what's going on? Because I don't have allergies, per se. Like, I don't have to take Zyrtec or I don't get affected by, like, flowers or seasons or anything like that. For the most part, my nose is clear. So I just cannot breathe out of my nose. And I'm like, all right, just ignore it. Keep going forward. So I get to transition 1. So I pick up my bike stuff.
How far was the transition, like from the water to the bike transition?
Usually it's pretty close, but in this specific race, Ironman Florida is known to have one of the longest transitions. I think it was like half a mile.
Does that count towards your run?
It doesn't. Oh. It's just, but it counts towards your like transition time. So I spoke to John de Blasio, which he had done Ironman Florida in the past, and he told me, it's like, hey, that transition is going to take you at least 10 minutes. Because, like, normally transitions should take you, like, 2 to 3 minutes for, you should kind of, it should be like you're getting out of the water and then you're pretty much at transition. But this was like, you're getting out of the water, you're crossing the street, you're going down a path, you're going into a parking lot, you're going around, and then you finally get to your bag. So I knew it was going to take long, and I actually thought it was going to take 10 minutes, and this is exactly what it took. It took 10 minutes between the entire transition.
So what are you thinking? Are you thinking, I want to hurry up and get through this transition as fast as I can, or do I want to get my heart rate back down because I know I'm going to jump on the bike? And
there's so many things going through your head that I can't focus on every detail. It's just the little things I was noticing. Like, I did look down at my watch and I noticed like my heart rate's more elevating, but then I'm like, okay, it's probably because like I can't breathe out of my nose. So I'm breathing harder out of my mouth. Plus I finished a swim that, I had to I had to put more energy into than I thought I was going to have to. Normally swimming's easier for me, but now I had to kick more. I had so many things go on that, like, I had to push through a lot to finish the swim. So I'm probably a little more tired than I normally would be. So I finally get to, my bag. I grab my bike shoes. I put everything on, my helmet, and I'm ready to go. I get out of the tent, and I grab my bike. And on my bike, I had my bike computer. So as I'm running to the beginning stages of getting on the bike, I grab my bike computer to turn on my computer so I can gauge exactly like how fast I'm going and how many miles I'm going. And it swiveled, so I thought I was gonna fall, and I went to go grab it, and I dropped my bike.
Yeah, we saw something, and we're like,
And everybody's like,
fall?
everybody goes, ooh. I was like, oh man, it's one of those. Like, I dropped my bike, all my nutrition fell off, my bike chain fell off, my computer fell off, so I had to kind of piecemeal everything back together. Thankfully, there was an assistant there that like helped out, and he saw my chain go down. He's like, don't worry, I'll put your chain back on. Worry about grabbing your water bottles and all your stuff. So I put everything back on. I'm finally good to go. And I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to make up the time. For being a middle class triathlete, because I'm obviously not a professional, like I'm a fairly good biker. Like I feel strongest probably in my bike than any other discipline in triathlon. So I was like, okay, this is where, since I'm usually a slower swimmer, I catch up to those that are not really good bikers that beat me in the swim. Normally when I do the bike portion, very rarely do people pass me. Maybe I have like a handful of people that pass me, but for the most part, I'm just going through. So I kind of feel good. My heart rate's a little high, and I still can't breathe out of my nose. So probably 10 miles into the race, I'm going to pass somebody. So the way it works with triathlon bikes is you have what's called aero bars in front of you. So you're in a leaned, bent position, and you have your gears in front of you with both of your thumbs, and you're controlling your gears. You're controlling your different speeds. But you don't have your brakes available to you. Your brakes, you kind of have to get out of the aero position to hit your brakes. So because of that, you're not allowed to be directly behind somebody.
okay.
Like
So
you
the
wouldn't
delay, you would hit
right.
somebody.
Like a regular road bike, your hands are on your brakes, so you can easily instantly stop. So it's not a big deal. But tri bikes, it's basically like a 2-part deal. So when you want to pass somebody, you have to stay 3 bike lengths behind them the whole time. And then when you're ready to pass them, you veer to your left, you look back to make sure nobody's coming. And then you have 15 seconds to pass them and get in front of them. So I see a guy that's in front of me that he's going a little slower. And I say, okay, I want to pass him. So I veer to my left. I look to my left, nobody's coming. And I have my 15 seconds to pass him. There's nobody in front of him either. So it's not like he's going to make a pass. He's just going straight. So as I'm approaching him, and when my back tire kind of gets to like his front tire, he automatically, for some reason, just veers to the left, and he crashes into me. And we're probably going like 18 miles an hour at this point, and I'm like, my bike is shaking, his bike is shaking, he's like freaking out. I'm like, oh, this is it. Like, I'm gonna crash, and I'm gonna have, hopefully I'm okay, but hopefully more importantly, my bike's okay so I can continue, because if you have bike failure, like for the most part, you can change a flat tire or a chain, but like you're screwed if your gears, your components are messed up. Like you're pretty much out.
It's not
of the
like you
race.
have a backup biker or a team following behind you, like the
Exactly.
Tour de France or something.
Exactly. You can't have that in triathlon. You can't have outside help. So it's just you. I mean, you have the people that are there, like, the aides that they'll help you, like change a tire or something like that, but they're limited to what they could do. They're not going to fix your entire bike. So we're both wobbling, and all of a sudden, like, he kind of frees up and he falls. Like, he falls off his bike. He flips forward.
That's not funny.
It's not, but it's like, man, like, look at all the stuff that's happening to me. Like, how is this happening to me right now? This guy just crashed into me out of nowhere. So I turn around, I kind of put the brakes on my bike, and I look to see if he's okay. It just so happens that there's like a scooter that was maybe not so far behind us that saw it go down, that there were aides for the race. And they gave me like a thumbs up, like, hey, we'll take care of it, keep going kind of thing. Because there's really nothing I can do at that point except check on him. So they came and they aided him. So I'm now like, my adrenaline is like way pumped. Like I almost got in an accident. Now my heart rate's like way high.
What else could go wrong? We just started.
So I'm like, maybe a mile past what just happened. I'm like, all right, let me get some water. Let me get some Gatorade. So I reach back, and this guy knocked down all my nutrition off my bike. I don't know how he did it, but all my water bottles are gone. So
He took him.
I don't know if like he was falling. He's like, I'm gonna take this, and pay back. So now I'm like, nothing's going my way. Like, I'm so dependent on my nutrition. Like we just spoke about. Like, I know I have to have 3 Gatorade bottles an hour, just to maintain. Just to keep me from cramping, from bonking out, from fatiguing. Like, now I don't have that, and my first aid station is not till mile 20. So. And then even there, like they have Gatorade bottles available, but the Gatorade bottles, I could put them in my bike cage. They fit, but they're not thick enough. So if I go over any kind of bump, like a lot of times they were falling out on the race. So there were times where I had nutrition, and there were times I didn't have nutrition. So it was rough from that point forward. And yeah, I was just biking really slow. I was probably going like 15.7 miles an hour.
And what would you normally be doing?
For me, I would probably be somewhere between like, I wanted to be 19 miles an hour. I've done faster, but I've never done that distance. So I was like, just to be conservative, I want to stay at 19 miles an hour. That was my goal. I wanted to do an under 6 hour bike ride. And I was just going so slow. And
So compared to most other Ironmans, is this course flat course? Is there a headwind? Is there?
it's flat, but they have what's called rolling hills. And the wind is such a factor. Like, you don't know if the wind's going to come from the west, the east. So you can have a day where the wind is great and, you know, the wind is at your back, you know, most of the race, which is ideal because now you're going faster. Or you could have like a headwind the entire time. And that's the worst because, you know, you want to go fast, you're on flat land, but now all of a sudden you have winds that are slowing you down by like 4 or 5 miles per hour.
And there's no peloton. It's just all you.
There's no peloton. It's just all you in your head. So I'm going slow. I can't breathe out of my nose. I got my nutrition knocked down. I had all the stuff that happened to me on the swim. I find myself like just making excuses like, man, like this is not going the way I wanted it to. I'm doing terrible. I even started thinking at one point, like, I might not finish this race. Like, I'm going so slow on this bike. Like, if I'm going slow and I'm tired now and my heart rate's up and I can't breathe out of my nose, like, how am I going to finish another 60 plus miles on this bike and then do an entire marathon run? Like, it's not going to happen. And like, something just came over me. I was like, I'm done making excuses. Like, I got angry. I was so upset. I was like, from this point on, like, nobody's going to pass me on this bike, which is a terrible idea. Like, you should never gauge how you're doing against somebody. Like, it's you against you. Like, I've been a victim of that in the past where like somebody passes me on the bike. I'm like, no, this is not going to happen. I speed up and it ends up not working out in my favor because now I've tired myself out when instead of running my own race, I'm running somebody else's race. But at that point I was willing to abandon everything. Like, I was so upset. I'm like, I'm not going to check my heart rate. I'm not going to check anything else. I'm just going to take off on the bike. And I did. I just like, I think I went from like averaging 15.7 miles an hour to the rest of that race. I was averaging like 21, 22 miles per hour.
Yeah, we saw you pick up your pace.
Yeah, I was just flying.
We figured we were following you along on the thing, and we're just like, maybe he's in a headwind or something.
Yeah, which some of it was headwind, but like some of it was just like I was going through it. I was like mentally in my own head, and I was just like my own worst enemy. I was like pitting myself and saying like, this isn't fair. This stuff shouldn't be happening. I didn't train for this. Like, kind of like, can I get a do-over? Like,
Right.
And it just is what it is. Like, you're now, you know, you're nowhere near done, and you got to figure out a way to get it done. And
What would Goggins do?
yeah, what would Goggins do? So I went to a dark place that I probably haven't tapped into in a while, and I was just like, it's crazy how that works. Like, my heart rate went back down. I was able to breathe out of my nose again, like a couple miles or maybe like 20 minutes after that. Like, my body was just like, oh, you showed up. Here you are. Like, we're waiting for you. Like, now that you're done making all those excuses, like, now we can actually have some
Do you
fun.
think you could have hit that flow state that people always talk about, or that zone?
I definitely felt it. Like, I mean, granted, like, if you're a professional and you listen to this, like 22 or 21 miles an hour for you is nothing. Like, you know, you've done it. But like, for me, that's fast. Like, I'm not 21, 22 miles an hour. For somebody who doesn't have like a biking background and didn't do like a lot of bike training, like, it's a long and a hard pace to hold for such a long distance. So like, I was just flying by people because at that point I was just so far behind because I had a slow swim and there was so many people now passing me on the bike, which I thought I was going to like kill it. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm 50 miles in and I'm like slow. People are passing me that like nobody else passed me from that point. I was just like going swerving by people. And I had like that Michael Jordan mentality where he makes up, you know, stuff in his head as to like, you know, to help him perform better. Like, I was passing people and be like, oh, this guy was laughing at me as he was passing me earlier. Now I'm going to pass him. Like, that's just how it was. I was just angry and it ended up working in my favor. And then I just found a rhythm. Like, I felt good on the bike and I started having fun. Like,
Right.
I was enjoying the scenery. I was like enjoying the people that are cheering you on. I was paying attention to the small things. Like, instead of being hyper focused on all the things that were going wrong. And on a bike leg that long, like you have to find things to motivate you because you're on the bike so long.
There's no music.
There's no music. You could just push. You can only push so far, and like you're excelling and you're going fast on the bike, and then all of a sudden you're just tired.
Right.
So I just like had this Michael Jordan mentality where I just started making stuff up in my head to like motivate me because I was just like I was passing people and I was like, oh, like this guy was probably laughing at me.
Everybody became the enemy.
Everybody became the enemy. Like nobody was safe. I wasn't like passing people and saying like good job. I was like passing people and I was just like, oh, I'm sure this guy didn't see me coming when he passed me earlier and here I am now. So I was just having fun. I was just enjoying the scenery. I was just like enjoying like, you know, the people that are all there. There's such a good support system in Ironman. Like so many people will come out just to like, you know, root you on and they make signs and they're cheering you on.
Those cowbells.
Yeah, the cowbell. Like that's even harder than doing an Ironman is ringing a cowbell for 13, 14 hours. So they're just, you know, they're really into it. They're motivated. They're really passionate about it. And they help. Like, you know, I mean, you don't think about it at the moment, but then when you go through gaps where nobody's there, you're like, I'm by myself. But then, like, you'll go to patches where there's a bunch of people cheering you on, and it just gives you, like, energy.
A bit of motivation.
Yeah, it motivates you. So I finished strong. I finished strong on the bike, 112 miles, you know. And obviously
112 miles and a swim for 2 hours. At any point, are you like, damn, I got to do a marathon after this?
I think it's just, like, mental checkpoints. Like when you hit it, you're so happy that you're not thinking about the rest. Like when, you know, I did the first mile or the first loop on the swim, I was like, all right, I got the first loop done. I just need one more. And then when I did, you know, every time I hit a checkpoint on the bike, I'm like, okay, I'm 20 miles in. I'm 40 miles in. Oh, I'm halfway. Like I didn't ever look at the bigger picture. I looked at just the checkpoints because that's what gets you through. So when I finally finished the bike, I was just so happy that I finished the bike because I've never done that distance before. That, yeah, I knew the run was coming, but I was like, it was just like that was a small accomplishment, in its own. So, but I knew I exerted myself.
Lucky you didn't crash or have a flat, because like to me, it's just like if you have a flat tire, that's got to be.
Oh yeah, like I'm complaining about all the things that happened to me, which yes, they're not normal. You know, like it hasn't happened before. But, like, there are worse things that can happen. Like, you can get really hurt by, like, marine life. Like, I mean, it's not very common, but, like, a shark or something like that. Or you could have trouble swimming or something happening in the water. You can have allergic reaction. Or obviously, like, bike failure is another one. Like, it would suck to, and I saw a lot of people, like, on the side of the road, like, nothing they could do. Like, their bike gears are off. They're just waiting for aid to see if they could help them. But, like, imagine, like, you know, you invest all this time, you pay all this money because it's definitely not cheap. You're traveling, you do all this, and you get there, and
Mechanical
failure. Like, that is, like...
Up and out of your hands.
Even worse than the shark in the water that I'm constantly thinking about. That is, like, my nightmare. I try not to even think about it just so that it doesn't happen. I'm just like, everything's going to be fine. I'm not going to have bike failure. So, that alone is a huge accomplishment because once I finished the 112 on the bike, I'm like, okay, like I don't have to worry about bike failure. Now I just got worry about leg failure. So, which I was tired. Like I had exerted myself because I'd pushed probably faster than I should have just because I wanted to make up ground and I just needed it for myself. That I had a great bike towards the back half, but I knew that like I wasn't gonna ideally keep the pace that I was shooting for on the run. So, which is another thing that I'm happy about. Like, once I abandoned a pace and I wasn't worried about, like, how fast I want to go anymore, I got to have fun. I got to enjoy it. Like, now it just became of, like, I just want to finish this. Like, yes, obviously I don't want to walk. Like, my goal in the run was not how fast can I run it. I was like, I don't want to walk at all. Unless I obviously have to stop at, like, aid stations to get food and gels. Like, because it's difficult to, like, drink Gatorades in little cups when you're running. It spills all over you. It's like, if you're not a professional, it's just worth the time to stop, catch your breath, drink, and continue. And that's what I did. I had so much fun on the run. Like, yeah, it's a full marathon run, but it's beautiful run down the beach. You have tons of cars and people supporting you. The weather was perfect. Like, everything that wasn't clicking started clicking again. Like, my nutrition was on point. I didn't cramp up at all. I felt good. My watch died on me, which was another thing. I was like I'm constantly looking at my watch to see, like, okay, it's been 40 minutes. I got to take a gel. It's been, you know, this much time. I got to take a dab of salt. And then it died on me, and I was like, it is what it is. Like, I feel good. I know what I need to do. I know more or less like
You're in
what
tune
is.
with your body. You kind of
I'm
had
in
an
tune with my
idea.
body. Like I knew when my body needed a gel. I knew when my body needed salt. Like I had just done it so many times that it was just like it figured itself out. I didn't have to think about it, and I really enjoyed it. Like the run was awesome. So it was like it was two big loops. It was a 6.5 mile or more, to one point to another 6.5 mile, and then you did it twice.
Okay.
And yeah, like as I started getting towards the end, like, and I saw the signs on the floor saying like 22 mile, mile 23, mile 24, like I wanted to pick up the pace, but at the same time, like I don't want to cramp, but like I'm there. Like I feel good. Like I know I can finish this, so I did. Like I think the last mile, like I picked up my pace big time. Like, and I even sprinted when I was like towards the finish line because I just felt so good. And then like at that moment, I feel like so many emotions are going through your head when you're like a mile
That's
away.
it.
Like you got this. Like bar like a catastrophic failure.
I'm
Like
finishing this thing.
You break your knee, so like you're finishing. And even if I did break, I would still I can crawl a mile. So I just like all that started coming to to fruition. Like I was like, I trained so hard for this. Like I've been wanting this for a long time. Like I didn't think I can get here at a certain point, and now I'm here. Like all these emotions are just flooding through you. Like I can't believe I just did this. Like and everybody's like cheering you on, and everyone's like high-fiving you and stuff like that. And like I was like, man, this is such a good feeling. Like I wanted to slowly like
Enjoy the moment.
they always tell you to enjoy it, like don't sprint to the finish line, but I felt so good that I was like, I'm gonna sprint. Like I just probably like the last quarter mile, I just picked up my pace and I started sprinting because I just felt like I want to finish this with energy. Like it's crazy that I didn't finish this like about to fall or
down
dying.
and
Like I
staggering.
felt good. Like I feel good. I have energy. Like the crowd is getting me going, and I'm finally running, and like I see myself on the board, and I see the red carpet. When you see that
The red
long
carpet.
red
You're
carpet,
there, man. You're
yeah,
there.
you're like, man, this is it. So I just like, I think like I crossed that finish line, and like I'm not a crier at all. Like my wife's always like, when's the last time you cried? I'm like, I don't know, probably like
Man, we don't cry.
I don't cry. Like I just, it's not that it's wrong or it's unnatural. I'm not an emotional person where like I cry or that's my outlet. But like I started like crying, and I was like, I just felt like, man, what an accomplishment. Like I can't believe I did this. It was just such a good feeling. Everybody's cheering around you, and they put a medal over your head, and like that you just finished this
You
huge
hear the guy
accomplishment.
saying, "You
Yeah.
are an Ironman."
He says,
Like,
"You are an Ironman," and you're like, man, like,
did it.
you know how many times I envisioned this moment when I was training, like all the time. I'm like constantly thinking, like, what am I gonna do when I cross the finish line? And now, like, I'm here. So it was just such an awesome experience. My family was there. You guys were there. You guys all supported me. I had such a good time, and if I could do it over again, I'd want it, other than maybe getting kicked in the face like 20 times, I would have it go the exact same way, because like if everything goes the way you planned, perfect, there's no growth there. Like great, good for you. Like, if you're going for a PR or something, that's great. But like, that's not what I was there for. Like I got the mental growth. I dipped into a gear that I didn't know I had because of all the adversity that I had to face during the process of like, man, like all this stuff happened to me. I started feeling guilty. I started feeling bad for myself. I was just like, and then I just shut all that out. I'm like, man, I'm here. Like, let me enjoy this moment. Like, I didn't come here to make excuses. I came here to, with a goal and a purpose in mind, and I'm going to get there. And that mental growth is something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. Like, like I know that I always have the gear in the back of my head. I know that I endured this. Like, man, I just did something for 13 hours. So anytime I do something that like I'm tired, I'm like, man, I know I got more in me. Like
13 hours.
13
I mean, just giving that
hours.
some thought. You're exercising for 13 hours. Some
Yeah.
people don't even do that in a week or two.
Yeah, my original plan was to do it under 12. That was like my selfish goal. But that's if everything went perfect. Like I had it all mapped out. Like this time on the swim, this time on the run, bike, transition. Like, and I think like when I mapped it all out, I was gonna be like at 11 hours and 50 minutes. But things don't go as planned, and what happened needed to happen. And like I'm just happy. Like I wasn't upset that I didn't get the time I wanted. I was just so happy that I accomplished this, and like I got the growth and I got the experience, and it was just so much fun.
I noticed the first thing you did was you got on the phone. Who'd you get on the phone with?
Oh yeah, I got on the phone with my wife because she's so worried. You know, like she worries so much about me. She's every time I go bike in the morning, she's like, "Be careful, like there's cars and this and that." She doesn't want me to like bike outdoors. I'm like, I can't. Yes, I could do Peloton so much, but like I need to experience the wind. I need to be in that aero position. Like you can't fake that stuff. You have to put the time in. So she's always nervous. So I was like, I want to call her immediately, not only to just kind of ease her mind that I'm done, but just like to share that moment. And like she was there with the family, and like everybody was screaming and happy, and it was just like such a great moment. Like that was probably really when I broke down, when I was just like talking to her, and I was like, I did it, and we did it, and
Share a moment together.
we had a moment together. It wasn't the moment that I had envisioned, but it was awesome. You know, she got to be there, like, and get that raw, real emotion right at the finish line.
You gave me a scare too, because I'm tracking you, and then I'm looking at your progress, and you're not moving.
Okay, let me tell you. Let me
So
tell
I'm
you
like,
what happened there.
do I need to go find this guy? Did
So-
something happen? Like my mind was like, I told Eric, I said, Eric, check your phone. Is he moving? And he goes, no, it's not moving.
There
So I
was
was
like,
I gotta go find him.
so I had to stop to take a leak because I'm like, I have to take a leak like really badly because my hydration was doing pretty good on the bike, and I was like, I gotta stop. So I stopped and I pulled over, and I like run inside of the grass. I take a leak. As I get off the grass, I notice I have, what are those little balls with all the spikes on them?
I hate those things.
My God, they were all over my legs. Like I'm talking maybe like 40 of them, and they were in the creases of
Just
the shoe.
one
Yeah, and
is a
I
pain in the butt.
so now I'm like I can't bike like this because if my foot moves, like it's gonna dig into my foot, and like so now I'm like individually pulling all these things out, and they're like the spikiest ones I've ever seen in my life. Of course, like of all days, and there's like. So I'm like trying to flick them. I think I got like 2 or 3 splinters in my hand from them. So that probably took me like 3 or 4 minutes of just not even moving.
Okay.
And I was like, and that was it. Now again, that was before I went on that like 20-mile, 22-mile-hour tangent that I was just going fast. That was like another thing that was like mentally defeating me. I'm like, could anything else happen? Like, what else is it just gonna start pouring rain? And like at that point I was just making excuses and I was mad, but that's why I stopped for like 4 or 5 minutes that I didn't move.
But it all worked out, man.
It all worked out.
So I guess for recovery for you, like that night, like did you have a plan of what you're gonna go eat? Did you eat a big meal, or were you just so tired of just like leave me alone? I'm just gonna go
Honestly,
recover.
like you would think like, man, you just did 13 hours, like you must be starving. Yes and no. Like I had so many gels that I put in my body that like I didn't want to even eat anything. I remember like probably around mile 15, I could not put another gel in my mouth. Like I put a gel and I couldn't swallow. I was like my body
had enough of
doesn't
this.
want this. Like I'm done. And I was like, this is the last gel I'm not having anymore. And what kind of saved my life was like, once it gets dark, they bring chicken broth out, and it was like having that chicken broth, that sodium, that heat, like it was like the greatest thing in the world. Like I was like, oh my God, this is delicious. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm constantly eating, so I'm not starving when I finish the race. Plus, when you finish the race, there's like a little race tent. When you cross the finish line, I think I grabbed like 2 pizzas, ate them, and then I think we ordered pizza when we got back to the hotel, and I probably had like
Pizza night.
I probably had like 4 or 5 like small square cut slices. I really wasn't that hungry, and surprisingly, like my body felt good. Like I didn't have any like I was battling a few injuries leading up to the race, like maybe 3 weeks out. I had popped my ankle swimming, and I was like, took me a while to recover from that. And then I remember telling you that like I had some hamstring pain like maybe a week before the race. Like all things that I thought like all this is gonna flare up on the race, and I'm probably gonna like finish this race, but I'm gonna like be in pain.
It's gonna be challenging.
I'm gonna be in a world of pain when I finish. And surprisingly, like I was good. Like
Awesome.
the next day, I think like we got up like
Early.
6 in the morning, 5, 6 in the
Had
morning
pancakes.
to go get pancakes. Everybody's like, "What are you doing up?" I'm like, "I'm ready to go." Like it was just, I'm glad because I had a 9-hour drive back. So that was one thing I was worried about, was my wife was gonna drive me home, but then like now I gotta drive home 9 hours, and I don't know how my body's gonna feel. Like my legs could be so shot that like it would have been a really tough 9 hours. But I think my mom decided to come with me, but we split the drive because I
Okay.
felt so good. I'm like, you don't need to drive. Like, you rest, I rest, and I felt good.
They came prepared, man. They had a little Winnebago, they had a little tri bike. I mean,
They
there were some
are,
cool people, man. I met
this-
them for the first time, and it was just like we knew them for a good amount of time.
yeah, man. My mother has no filter, and you either love her or hate her. Like she said, she'll give you the shirt off her back. She's so sweet, but you know, like that's just the way she is, and I've always appreciated her for that. She's a people person. She loves to talk. She loves to like, you know, like she'll find out, you know, like I'll leave the room and I'll come back. She's talking to somebody for 30 minutes and she knows their whole life story. I'm like, she's like, that's just how she is. She's very personable, and she's generally interested in like getting to know people and all that. And like, my father's the same way. So they mesh so well together, and they bought an RV and they live on a boat in Dinner Key Marina, and that's their life. Like they just love. It's not for everybody, but they love it. They live in the water. They travel all over, and they're meant for each other. They both enjoy that. So you know, when I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go to Panama for this race, they're like, okay, we'll take the RV up, and then we'll make it a trip. We'll go somewhere else. Like that's just what they love to do, and I've always supported them. Like, hey man, like it's your time now. All the kids are out of the house. Like, do you? Don't worry about if you can't show up for one birthday or this or that. Like, enjoy your life. Like, this is your time. Both of you guys to just enjoy yourselves.
So what's next?
I don't know. I got that bug now. Like, I got that itch. Like today, I ran like 10 miles today, and I worked out an hour, and I've just like been running, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm still like in training mode. Like, obviously, like.
It's hard to shut it off.
Yeah,
I mean, you've been
it's
doing it
hard
for
to
so
shut
long.
it off. Yeah, and I want to just keep riding this momentum because like I'm 36 years old. My athleticism is gonna leave me at a certain point. Like this is like the time right now in my life where I feel good. Like I wanna keep exploring my limits. Like Ironman, as fun as it was, like it's not my limitation. Like right now it is because that's where I'm at. Like you know that's like what I was able to accomplish and I felt comfortable with. But like I have now the RIT competition in January.
Yes, gotta pick that up.
Yeah, I'm way excited now to like spend more time in gear, like just training.
Training gear.
Yeah. Plus, and then leading up to that, I've talked to you about like doing the combat challenge next year. When the Blasi gets back from smoke divers, I want to like dive into maybe doing some ultras. Actually, my brother approached me 2 days ago about doing a ultra Spartan race in Hawaii in August.
Oh, I'm gonna start looking at flights.
Yeah, so he's
We're
like,
going to Hawaii.
so it's like it's gonna be like 50 miles, like 100 obstacles, and like I'm like, yeah, like my wife always gets mad at me about
She's
this,
probably like, oh,
because you tell me like, hey, let's go do this tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Like I don't even think twice about it. I have to kind of stop and be like, hey, let me run it by my family, but
same way.
yeah, like I'm just all in. Like as long as it makes sense for my family, I'm not taking away time or money or like that's one thing. It's not about me. It's about them. It's about my daughter.
They're part of the journey in the process.
But to me, like just the way I view life, like if I can't be the best person for myself, I can't be the best person for my daughter. Like, and it's not trying to be selfish, but I can't be the best version of myself. I can't be the best version for her. And like just filming this documentary and stuff like that, it's not only just for people to see what I've gone through and maybe inspire them to do something similar. It's a documentary for her, for when she grows up and she's going through something or she's making a big life decision and she like looks at this and says like, man, my dad did this. Like he put
That's
his
an
heart towards
Ironman.
it. Yeah, like
Never take that away from you.
yeah, it'll never take that away from me. And so it's just something I want to instill in her. Like I want her to find that. Like it doesn't have to be athleticism. It could be music. It could
Anything
be-
in
yeah,
life.
but just follow it and be passionate about it. And it doesn't matter what age. Like, look, I'm 36 and I could have gotten into this when I was 20, but I didn't. But I got into it now, and I love it. It's giving me like a second wind. Like I'm excited to train. Like I'm gonna get into even better shape. Like I'm gonna get into the best shape of my life this year. I'm gonna keep pushing. So there's just so many things. I have like a little small 5K coming up like in 2 weeks. Like I'm just gonna keep doing things as far I want to keep going as far as as my body will take me and as far as like I can go. I just want to keep pushing the limits.
All right, so we're kind of wrapping up things up here. I didn't know we were going to go this long, but
Yeah, I
this,
didn't either.
this was great conversation. And
Yeah.
where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, the Hybrid Firefighter. That's my tag. I'm currently working on a YouTube channel, but we're gonna be posting most of our videos on Rick's. What's your YouTube?
Mine is Rick Stevens Media, but we'll be tagging each other and we'll be doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
Hybrid Firefighter.
So yeah, basically right now I'm on Instagram. You can find all my progress there, and then we'll link to YouTube videos or anything else like that, my Facebook account. But yeah, like follow me. And I'm not trying to be this fitness motivator who's trying to like get you to change who you are. I just want people to see my journey and see that like an average Joe can do this. Like you don't have to be a professional athlete. You just got to be disciplined. You got to have desire, and you just got to put a plan together, and anybody can do it. Like, yeah, it's tough. It takes time, and you have to have, some athleticism to do it, but it's possible, man. Like everything I do, I just, as long as I put the time and the passion in it, it'll figure itself out. So that's what I want to kind of show people.
Boom. And definitely going to be working on the doc, so look for that coming out soon, but just a short version with Eric as well. And we're going to put a full-length version, a bit off a little bit more than I can chew, but we're going to do this thing right, man, and we're going to try to knock this out of the park. And
Awesome.
you get to follow Eric's progress.
Yeah.
Eric and your progress, because Eric is doing something too.
Oh, yeah, man. This is Eric's line right here, training gear, which I support it. I mean, it's the job that we decided to do, and it's the gear that we're required to wear when we go into fire. So you should be training in your gear. A lot of us forget that, and we don't want to get in our gear, or it's too hot, or I gotta wash it. Like it doesn't matter, man. Like training gear, get comfortable in it. It'll just make you a better fireman.
Boom. All right, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Look for more videos coming out soon.
All right.
And we're gonna track Kris's progress, see what he's gonna do next.
Yep. Stay tuned.
Boom.